Star Wars 7 by 7 episode 1514. Today, what about security camera footage at the Jedi Temple? Punch it, Chewie.
This is Todd Vanderhayden. I'm a national Canadian television anchor with CTV News and a syndicated radio host. And you're listening to Star Wars 7 by 7, the only daily Star Wars podcast.
Hey, Rebel Rouser. I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7 by 7. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, for joining me, however you happen to be joining me for this podcast. Thank you so much for subscribing wherever you may be doing it, and thank you for supporting the podcast as a patron as well, if you're doing that too. And today we're going to continue our conversation. This is the last of the three parts where we talk about who found out the secret of Darth Vader, that he's really Anakin Skywalker, and how they came about the knowledge thereof. It seems to be one of those unusual secrets where it was supposed to be the deepest, darkest secret in the Empire, and yet more and more people seem to be learning about this secret. And so we're going to dig into that a little bit today, because right now, the way the canon stands, there's opportunity for a lot more people to come into this knowledge. And yet we also know that it can't be very widespread at all, because it's not supposed to be widespread knowledge until much later in galactic history. In fact, about, let me do the math. 30 ABY roughly. So yeah, it's supposed to be a while, and yet more and more people are finding out. So let's start with how the original knowledge of things got out. And it has to do with Obi-Wan and Yoda getting back into the Jedi Temple and investigating what the heck was going on and setting the automatic message at the temple up so that way it sent the Jedi away instead of calling the Jedi back in order to get themselves killed. And before they decide to leave the temple, Obi-Wan says, "I gotta know the truth, and here's what happens."
If into the security recordings you go, only pain will you find.
I must know the truth, Master. It can't be. It can't be.
You have done well, my new apprentice. Now, Lord Vader, go and bring peace to the Empire.
I can't watch anymore.
So there you have it, the painful truth that Obi-Wan discovers. That Anakin Skywalker has turned and fallen to the dark side of the Force and is now a Sith Lord named Darth Vader, and he is the one who's responsible for the death and destruction at the Jedi Temple. Now, the big question is, what happened to that security camera footage? Obi-Wan and Yoda don't take a copy of it, at least we don't see them on screen taking a copy of it in Revenge of the Sith, so lost to antiquity? Well, not necessarily. First of all, we have to consider the fact that Emperor Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious, moved into the Jedi Temple after all of the Revenge of the Sith stuff happened and renamed it the Imperial Palace. And so now he's got control of it, or at least that's what happened. It moved into his control, and whether he destroyed it or archived it or did whatever, we don't necessarily know. But we do know that it wasn't his intention, at least, based on the 19 to 23 year history from Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope and through to Return of the Jedi. It doesn't seem like it was ever his intention to let the galaxy know that a Jedi, and one of the most amazing Jedi ever, Anakin Skywalker, became a Sith Lord, namely Darth Vader, because Emperor Palpatine himself did not want the galaxy to know that he was a Sith Lord. That whole thing was utterly and completely hidden, and in fact, the novel Lords of the Sith by Paul Kemp that came out a couple of years ago, he made it clear that anyone who found out that Palpatine was any kind of a Force user was destined to be murdered to keep that secret. So you can imagine a scenario where Palpatine would have had all of that footage destroyed, because it not only revealed the secret of Anakin Skywalker's fall, but it also revealed Palpatine as a Sith Lord too. And yet that doesn't seem to be what's happened. And the reason why we know this is something that we'll talk about after the break here in a second. Stay tuned. Hey, Rebel Rouser. Have you ever wanted to take a land speeder for a spin, or maybe even the Millennium Falcon itself? Well, here's the next best thing. You can make your own custom Solo a Star Wars story-inspired Nissan with the best-in-galaxy customizer. Just go to sw7x7.com/custom to customize and share your own Star Wars-inspired vehicle. And don't forget, Solo a Star Wars story is coming home on digital September 14th, Blu-ray September 25th, and new on 4K Ultra HD as well. Welcome back. So, we were talking about the Darth Vader series just a couple of days ago, or over the last couple of days, I should say, and about this guy, Farron Barr, who found out that Vader and Skywalker were the same person, and who he told and all that stuff. And so, this is how he found out. He apparently had been studying the Jedi Purge, trying to figure out what happened, and managed to find a slicer, which in our normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill galaxy parlance would be a hacker. He found a slicer who was able to get him access to security camera footage outside of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and based on the next couple of panels, it looks like he might have gotten some footage from inside as well. But if you look at these panels, you see that he's identified Anakin Skywalker as the one creating all the death and destruction at the Jedi Temple, and that he eventually became Darth Vader. So apparently this footage still exists, or some version or variation of camera footage from the Jedi Temple still exists. And what happens in this particular story arc in the Darth Vader comic book series is that Farron Barr makes a copy of that information before they leave his secret acolyte's hideout, and we don't know what he does with it. He seems to have it on his person the last we have any reference to it, and then eventually he goes to face Darth Vader in combat and gets wiped out, surprise, surprise. But it doesn't seem like he gives a copy of that information to Verla, who is the one acolyte who survives all of that stuff that was happening on Mon Cala. So is it possible that the footage is still with the body of Farron Barr? Yes, that's possible, and that seems like the most likely place for its existence, but we don't necessarily know who is taking care of the body of Farron Barr. It's probably going to be the Mon Cala at some point, because Vader and all of his folks just decide to leave and say, there's no Mon Cala anymore, there's just the Empire. See you later, suckers. And that's it, and he just leaves a trail of dead bodies in his wake. So I guess it's up to the Mon Cala to see if they can find that footage, unless he handed it off to Verla in some off-scene component of this story arc. Either way, we kind of have a truth is out there scenario where it's the galactic equivalent of an urban myth or an urban legend that Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker are really the same person. And now we have to see if Lucasfilm and Marvel are going to continue this theme, and if they're going to make it a possibility that other people are going to discover this truth, only to have the truth silenced in some way, shape, or form. And that is also going to do it for this podcast as well. And again, thank you so much for watching, for listening, for however you're consuming this podcast. And if you're enjoying it, then please do support the podcast at patreon.com/SW7x7. That's patreon.com/SW7x7. And it just remains for me to say, again, thank you for being a part of this, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2018 Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.